Welcome everyone to Soul Talk, your inspiration on psychological and spiritual development. Soul Talk is both a podcast, you can find it on iTunes and on Spotify, and it's now also a YouTube channel. I am Kisa Paludan, I'm a spiritual psychologist and author. My aim is, to my best ability, to contribute to the consciousness of love in the world. So I thank you so much for joining us and enjoy. Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of Soul Talk. This is the second episode of my little series on life purpose, and this is a conversation with English Nick Williams, who is an author and an expert on life purpose and on personal leadership. Enjoy. So welcome to you, Nick. I'm so happy you want to be a part of this conversation.
Well, it's my pleasure. You know, I'm a great believer that life evolves one conversation at a time. So I just love having conversations, and it's wonderful to have conversations and record them and let people eavesdrop on them.
Exactly, yeah.
Fun to listen to other people talking.
Yes, that's right. So could you make just a short introduction of yourself, please?
I'll try and keep it brief. So what I did do, you know, so many people these days talk about what they used to do. So I used to sell computers to banks in the City of London. So I had a corporate career for about 10 years. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I was fairly successful at it. Mm-hmm. But it was selling computers to Japanese banks. So if I'm honest, it wasn't the most meaningful thing I could ever do. No. So I think, like a lot of people, I've had that kind of lifelong search for meaning. Mm-hmm. You know, what's meaningful? Mm-hmm. It led me to leaving my corporate job and starting my own business and starting to speak and starting to coach and then eventually starting to write. And now I've written 14 books. Yeah. I travel around the world giving talks. I broadcast. So I suppose, you know, I'm regarded now as a bit of a leader in my field. But I always think the field is just us, really, you know, with the leader and being ourselves. Yeah. I think I'm a leader in being myself.
I like
but
that.
I'm also passionate about the whole idea of leadership. Mm-hmm. You know, when I look around at the world, you know, like most of us, I kind of get disillusioned easily and look at the lack of inspiring leadership. Mm-hmm. But I suppose my belief is, well, you know, we're the ones to bring it. But most of us don't think of ourselves as being able to lead, or we look at leaders and think, I don't want to be a leader even. Mm-hmm. So I'm fascinated by people who are really doing a great job of being inspiring leaders, and yet in a way just being themselves at the same time. Yeah. But it's not a job, it's a way of being in the world.
Yeah, but it can take a lot of work and courage to just be yourself. Actually.
Paradoxically, you know, I think, well, as I'm sure you know, the biggest paradox of all is undoing air conditioning. You know, the biggest paradox is just being who we already are.
Yeah, exactly.
There's so many things that try to tug us in different directions.
Yeah. My last book was called Courage to Be You. And I think, you know, some people didn't understand that title because they were like, well, I am me. And I was like, yeah, lucky you then, because most people are not really themselves.
No, and, you know, we don't know how much is programming and conditioning. We don't know how much of what we're thinking is our own. So to me, it's a constant inquiry. It's like how much of what I'm thinking is really my thinking and how much is it programming and conditioning and stuff.
Yeah. So if you were to put a headline on what your expertise is, what would you say that you are a leader?
Well, these days I'm spending a lot of time coaching people into their leadership. Mm-hmm. People that either don't think they're leaders and helping them see that they're leaders, mm-hmm. or that they've reached a plateau in their level of leadership and they want to go, they feel there's more of them to come out. So mm-hmm. I suppose if I put a label on it, it would be an inspirational leadership coach, mm-hmm. speaker, keynote speaker, mm-hmm. writer. Mm-hmm. To me, there's that whole other dimension, which I presume we'll get into, about being a loving presence in the world. And to me, you know, great leadership is about being a loving presence in the world.
Yeah. And we can be that and do that and take leadership for our own lives, right? Without having the formal leadership in the company.
Yeah, and that's what I love today is, you know, you don't need a position to lead. You know, here you are and you're kind of surprised how many people are watching your broadcast. Mm. And yet people obviously are looking to you for leadership, but you're not saying, I'm setting out to be a leader.
No.
You have no formal position of leadership. And yet, because of who you are, people are drawn to work with you, listen to you. Mm. That's what fascinates me.
Yeah.
how can we be that people would naturally want to follow us,
Yeah.
or learn from us, or grow with us.
And you also talk about the meaning of doing what we are here to do. What does that mean?
Well, I've been a student of A Course in Miracles for probably 25 years now. So I suppose my kind of core understanding and my core belief is there's only ever two things going on. There's love and there's fear going on.
Yes.
So to me, meaning is when we're either living from a place of love already, or we're somehow breaking through our fearful patterns to become more of our true and loving self.
Yeah.
Those things are meaningful to me, and that's the journey I've personally been on for over 3 decades now, is how do I undo my own fearful patterns and become more loving in myself and in my own life? That's the question that is the most meaningful question to me.
Yeah, it is to me too.
Yeah.
Could you give us an example of, like an everyday example of fearful beliefs or patterns that would come up in our lives that would
Probably,
look
I was going to say, you probably just read any newspaper and it's full of fearful patterns. But, the first one that comes to mind is, 30 years ago, or just over 30 years ago, I was afraid to leave my corporate job because I didn't really know who I was. And if I didn't play roles and sacrifice myself and do what everyone else wanted me to, would I be able to earn a living? Would I be able to pay the bills?
Yeah.
I am 3 decades later, realizing that was my fear.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like fear at the time. It felt like
sensible
thinking.
Yeah.
And, one of the things I talk about a lot, and I wrote a book about it a few years ago, was what I've come to call, resistance, which is another way of talking about fear.
Yeah.
But I think there are so many ways that our resistance shows up that we don't even realize is resistance.
Yeah, I think you're right.
There's so many ways our fear shows up that we don't think is fear.
Yes. Yeah.
Often we think we've been very logical and very adult and very grown up and clear thinking, when really the foundation of what we're thinking, I think, is often fearful. And there is another way to think.
Yeah. So would you say that fear is the core problem of our ability to do what we are here to do?
I think it's probably the biggest thing. I'm not sure it's the only thing, but I think it is the biggest thing. And by what I mean by that is, I'm a great advocate and believer in skillfulness in what we're doing. So it's not enough just to kind of be loving and kind at what we do. I think we also need to learn the skillfulness. And for me, that's, like you were saying, you're learning about technology. It's one thing to say, yes, I want to do a podcast, or I want to do a broadcast, but it's knowing how to do it. How do you structure it? How do you make it work? How do you make people want to listen to it? How do you make people want to engage with it? There's real skill involved in that. So I think that combination of kind of overcoming resistance, being loving and being skillful are what we're here for.
Yeah. And so how do we know what we're here for? I hear so many people ask that. I don't know how to feel it within me. I don't know how to find it. I feel lost. And why is it even important?
It's a great question. I suppose my answer to it is very kind of, in a way, it's very personal, very individual. I know what it was like to live by what I call today, what I call the Protestant work ethic. I don't know if you have a similar thing in your country.
We do.
Yeah.
So,
whether it was in my family or whether it's just part of the way of thinking, but it's this whole belief that as long as we're not enjoying ourselves, as long as we're suffering, as long as we are in pain in some way and we're going against our true nature, that's work. And we deserve to be paid for it. Because we've suffered, so therefore, we justify loads of money because look at how much I've suffered, I deserve to be paid well. And I suppose what I'm an advocate of, and have been for a couple of decades, and it was my first book, is the idea that actually we're not here to suffer. Being human involves suffering. But I don't believe that suffering buys us any more of God's love than we've already got, if you like. We couldn't be more loving than we already are. So my personal journey and what I've been an advocate of for a couple of decades now is figuring out what really you love to do. And I think one of the big blocks to that for many people is that it feels like it's cheating.
Yeah, it's not enough.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's work.
Yeah.
You know, often when I'm coaching people, I often say, well, what do you love doing? Oh, you know, I love teaching. I love speaking. I love, you know, whatever it is. I love making clothes for the children, whatever. But they think, but that can never be a career because I love it too much. Or I enjoy it.
Yeah.
And that conditioning that we're talking about goes so deep for most people. It's gone so deep for me. So in answer to your question, why does it matter? Because otherwise we're going to live in a world where people are hating what they do, but getting well paid for it.
Yeah.
You know, I know that at times I wasn't very nice to be around because I was in so much, you know, I was suffering a lot of the time.
Yeah.
I know that I'm much nicer to be around today because I'm doing what I love. I'm being well paid for doing what I love. And I'm an advocate of other people finding what they love. I'm a much better human being than I was 3 years ago, if you like. You know,
Yeah. Wow.
a much more attractive presence in the world, I assume, than I was 3 decades ago.
Yeah. That's so interesting. And I think so true that we think we need to deserve a life of happiness or ease or and like, you know, most people have this idea that I'll go through this tough life. It's gonna be hard. I'm gonna work hard, and then when I retire, I'm gonna be happy and live my life. And usually people have no idea how to be happy and live their lives because they never learned how to do that.
No,
so when we
so
get
you're
to
right.
that point,
You know, and
we won't do it.
we share a love of a kind of common teacher, Robert, who I know you've interviewed, and I know that Robert talks about, you know, each of us has kind of what he calls hidden success contracts. And one of the hidden success contracts often is, well, if I suffer enough, then, and then fill in the blank, then I'll be happy, then I'll be rewarded, then God will love me, or whatever, you know, our version of that is. And I think that's part of what I'm an advocate of is kind of, you know, the dissolution of that success contract. That says, you know, we have to suffer in order to be happy or to have love. And that who we are is enough already. That, you know, for me, being a student of the course, you know, what the course says, there is a wholeness in you. I suppose, you know, I don't like to think of it as a quest particularly because that feels like there's something to do, but
or somewhere to go.
There's a wholeness in us already, and our job is to remember that and live from that wholeness more. And know that we're already lovable. In a way, we're already successful, but we could build a success. We could build our leadership. We could build a business on top of self-love. And it would have a very different feel, which is, I think, the question you were asking earlier about being versus doing. You know, if we're doing what we love, it will have a very different feel to, well, I don't really want to be doing this, but I've got to do it because I think it's the only way I can ever earn a living in this world. Sometimes it's doing the right things even, you know, it's like even being a healer or a therapist. You're doing it for the wrong reason.
Exactly.
So my goal is to help people do, if you like, the right thing, whatever the right thing is, but also for the right reason. Be a healer because you love being a healer. Be a coach because you love being a coach. Not because you think it's going to buy you something or it's going to make you more worthy as a being.
That's so beautiful. And such a I think it's so important because also we will teach our children and young people that you need to focus on all the stuff you're not good at already. That you don't love, like math or boring things like that.
Focus on making your weaknesses stronger.
Exactly, which doesn't make any sense. It's
no, you know, as I say, I'm a great believer in adding skills, but why not identify the strengths and the things that come naturally and then become skillful at doing them?
Exactly. I find if you do that first, then the things that come harder to you will come easier.
Either they'll come easier, or I'm a great advocate of creating what I call a network of collaborations. So whatever you're not good at doing, let somebody else do on your behalf. Delegate it. You know, find somebody who was born to do that and let them do it.
But I think it's a huge one, the one that instead of looking at what we are not good at and trying to become better, and the idea that we have to deserve being or feeling good enough, feeling loved.
Yeah. Well, my understanding is, from being a student of A Course in Miracles for a long time, is that, the heart of most of our existence is guilt.
Yeah.
So what we're doing a lot of our life is attempting to pay off that guilt.
Yes.
Through hard work, through sacrifice, through going against our true nature.
Yeah. And why do you think that is? Where does the guilt and shame, I think, too, where does it come from?
Well, I suppose that the only answer I can give is from having been a student of A Course in Miracles. And I'm not saying this is the answer, but it's my understanding is that when we believed, and I don't think we ever did, but when we believed we separated from God, accompanying that went a massive guilt that somehow we shoved God out and that we were now in charge. But we buried that guilt so deeply. Yeah. But it's still there. Yeah. So much of what we see happening in the world is our attempt to either deny that guilt in us and make somebody else guilty and judge them, or go to war with them to try and eliminate them because we think they're so bad. Yeah. Or deep down, we recognize our own guilt and we work really hard to pay it off. Yeah. And what I love about A Course in Miracles is it says that guilt was never true. Yeah. There is no sin, no guilt. Yeah. It's all an ego invention. Yeah. God has never judged us. It's an ego creation. Yeah. And yet, most religions on the planet are based on the idea that guilt is true, that God has judged us, and therefore, here's your path to paying off the guilt and being a good being. Yeah. And that's what I love about the Course, is it says that, the starting point, the core assumptions of all religions is incorrect. Yeah, I love that too. And imagine if we could all believe that about ourselves, that I am in my essence sinless and basic goodness. Already, I don't have to do anything to earn the feeling of being lovable. Yeah. Like we see with newborn babies, we see that in their eyes, right? This. Yeah. Yeah, I know where I come from. I know what I am. Yeah, I know what my true self is. And go kind of, do I deserve to be loved? Or, you wouldn't look at a ward full of newborn babies and go, that one deserves love, that one doesn't deserve love. And it's hard to get our head around the idea that God is unconditional love. Yeah. There are literally no reasons why God wouldn't love us. No, no matter what we do. And most of us think we have reasons why God wouldn't love us. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's very difficult for us to understand actually unconditional love in that way. Yeah, it's relatively rare in the world. And I think, to me, that's part of leadership, is like when we can begin to find that in ourselves, we become naturally attractive and people are drawn to us. And that can then be sometimes really difficult to deal with. It's like we don't even know what people are being drawn to. No. Yeah. But the more that we are self-loving and the more that we're self-accepting, I think the more we become attractive. Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I actually think that doing what you came here to do, also job-wise, is also an act of self-love. And very often we don't do what we love and what we were here to do in the first place because of lack of self-love. We don't think we are worth it. We don't think we're important enough. Beautiful, yeah. I totally agree. And it's certainly been part of my path, is that I've let myself at times get so far and then think, but I don't deserve to have it this good. Yeah, yeah. And I think that's a big one too, right? That when we do have really good, calm path or times of our lives, the ego will pop up and say, "Oh, you need to be alert. This is it won't last. You'll soon have to suffer for the for every blessing there's going to be a curse, and it's on its way. Don't worry." So you're right. The ego part of us hates the spiritual part of us in a way. Of course, yeah. And I think that to do what we came here to do and to really live our purpose is an act of self-love, but and it also takes standing in integrity and being authentic, knowing who are you really, what are you here to contribute with, and to be truthful to yourself, also to your values.
And I think lots of people have jobs or work lives that are not in accordance with their life values.
No, I agree. No, totally. And I suppose one of the ways I describe it is a kind of it's an evolutionary journey of consciousness. We become more and more aware of things, and it can be very uncomfortable at times, because we become aware of our own shadow. We become aware of our own judgmentalness, our own competitiveness, whatever ego traits we think of. I think the hardest part is to realize they're in us. They're not just in everybody else, but they are. But again, what I've loved about A Course in Miracles is it kind of depersonalizes it.
Yeah.
It just says, look, if you're in a body, you've got an ego, and this is what egos do. Please don't take it personally.
Exactly.
The territory.
Yeah.
You're here to undo and forgive your ego.
Yes.
Don't deny you've got it.
Yeah, but try to forgive it, and be conscious of the thoughts and the systems within you, because if you don't own them, you can't.
No, and certainly, and I think it'll be a lifelong journey. The more I can have compassion for my own ego patterns, the more I can have compassion for them in other people.
Yeah, for sure.
And if I don't do that, then I judge myself and I judge everybody else. And I'm an expert in judging. I can judge everybody.
I think we all can. Yeah. That's why I think that doing this work, this inner work, is also the greatest contribution to mankind, really, because we do get a sense of this impersonal love for one another, right?
Yeah, right back at the beginning of A Course in Miracles, it says, your job is not to search for love, but to search for the barriers that you've erected, which blind you to love's presence.
Yes.
And I'm not sure if I know what that means, but I think what it means is all the love we could ever look for is here now.
Yeah, already.
We just can't see it. It's like that idea, the kingdom of heaven is here, but we can't see it.
Yeah, and I think even psychology, I'm a psychologist myself, has gotten it wrong in a way, because, or maybe it was right at one point of time, but I don't think it's right anymore, that like you have to go through all these layers within you before you can reach your essence. Well, I think it's always there, and you might fall back into the ego patterns again and again and again through your life, but doing that, knowing that you are also a divine soul, makes a great difference, I think.
Well, I love it. That's what I mean by kind of consciousness. It's like, oh, look, there's my ego patterns again.
Yeah.
But because I'm conscious of them, in a way that can feel even more uncomfortable, because I'm not just habitually acting them out. I'm aware that I'm acting them out.
Yeah, exactly.
Then hopefully there's a stage beyond that where you kind of go, I'm not going to be run by my ego patterns in the same way that I used to be.
Yeah.
I know they're probably going to still be there. Exactly.
And so important, I think, in everyday life to know what your specific ego patterns look like. Like when I get too pressured, I will start thinking that I need to work harder, and that myself and other people should start whining about things. And as soon as I start thinking that, I know I'm off track.
Yeah, it's one of my kind of aphorisms, complaining is not a leadership quality.
Exactly.
And most of us are really good complainers. People don't go, wow, I really love to work with you. What a great complainer you are.
Yeah. But to know you, I think the Enneagram is really wonderful in that respect. It becomes so clear that, well, that's just my type, and it's not real.
And again, it's this whole thing for me of like impersonalizing it.
Yeah.
Because I think, again, without awareness, we personalize it.
Yes.
I'm a horrible person because I've got all these horrible ego patterns and I'm so judgmental. Welcome to the club.
Yeah.
That's what it means to be a human being. You might as well just own that.
Yeah. I think it's so beautiful.
Yeah. And I think one of the big ego patterns for most of us is we kind of isolate ourselves.
Yes.
We think
that's what I find. We all do that, right? And we think that we need to not show other people all our ego patterns, because if anyone else would see that, they wouldn't love us.
No, that's it. Like,
because we don't love ourselves.
This would make me unlovable.
Yeah.
That's what the ego says. Show this to everyone, and they will run a mile.
Yes. And I think it's so amazing whenever I do group work, that's what I see. People find the courage to show all of this. And this great impersonal love will arise.
Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah, you know,
because of that, because of our courage to be authentic to
yeah,
people.
yeah, and to name, you know, the way I tend to kind of describe it is by naming what's personal, we somehow make it more universal.
Yes, I love that.
You know, one of you, when you can do it, when I can do it, when one of your participants does it, when they name their personal experience,
Yeah,
everyone else's hand goes up and I said, oh, I thought it was just me.
yeah,
And then the healing can begin, because to
yeah,
me, what the Course of Miracles teaches is don't hide your ego patterns, bring them to the light.
yes, yeah,
Acknowledge them and bring them to the light, and then they can be dissolved gradually.
yes. I love that.
Mm.
Mm. So leadership in our lives and doing what we came here to do. Would you say, like, if we were to describe a path to doing that, to being that in the world, what would you say the path is? How do we go about it in a concrete way? Like if I would feel lost in my life and felt like I didn't contribute and didn't know my purpose in life.
Yeah, well, perhaps I can just give a context for it. You know, I wrote a while ago my first little book on leadership, and I'm writing one or two more books on leadership at the moment. So I have been thinking about these questions a lot, and I had two pivotal experiences a year or two ago that perhaps I can share with you, and that will give you a context for what you're asking. A long story, but you know, one to give you just a brief version of it, I got to meet and spend an evening with Desmond Tutu a couple of years ago. You know, not just me; it was 100 of us in London. And I just thought, you know, this man has got every reason to hate, to be prejudiced, to be judgmental, and here he is laughing, talking about how wonderful human beings are, and how we're here to be the arms and legs and feet of God. And do his good work. I just thought, how does he get to do this? And then it suddenly dawned on me, you know, it didn't dawn on me really till a couple of months later. I thought, because he both practices and teaches forgiveness.
Yeah.
You know, personally, I think he had a very difficult father. You know, he's had a lot of forgiving to do in his own life. And, you know, I came away going, here is a man in his leadership, in his, to me, spiritual leadership.
Yes.
You know, he's probably in his mid to late 80s now. He ain't going to be around for much longer, but I was just so inspired listening to him talk. He was the personal embodiment of what a lot of what I've been thinking. You know, he struck me as an embodiment of it. So that thing happened, and that got me thinking. And then a few months previously, long story again, but I'll just abbreviate it, I was ill about 6 years ago. I had hepatitis, and when I was in a dark place after I was ill, I just reached out to a few people. Some were friends, some were coaches, and said, look, in essence, I think what I was saying at the time is, I'm in a dark place. I can't see much good about me at the moment. Can you just tell me something good about me? Because I can't see it right now.
Wow, I love it. I love that you did that.
Yeah, so that alone was a very, you know, in my mind, a pretty courageous thing to do, because most of us, when we're down, we don't want to talk to anybody. So I put a few feelers out, and some people said some nice things which lifted me up. And one of them was a woman who I'd coached, who I think you've met since, who has since become the producer of Downton Abbey.
Yeah.
And I know she's presented on a few of Robert's courses.
Yes,
she's become a personal friend of mine, and as she has with Robert. And I've learned so much from her. And I did an interview with her last year, which I'm just putting together and publishing. And basically, she says, you know, part of her job as a producer is to let everybody shine. Is see the divine spark in everybody, and let everybody be as good as they're capable of being within the constraints of a film production. I just thought, what an incredible way to look at leadership.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, so those two things, meeting Desmond Tutu and then spending time with Liz and then going on set and watching Downton being, you know, produced, just got me thinking there is another way of leading.
Yes.
And I've just met two people that embody another way of leading.
Yeah.
So in answer to your question, I think there can be an evolutionary path, in as much as my evolutionary path has been, you know, I didn't even think I could do what I love to start with. I just spent a decade doing what I thought I should do and ought to do, and enjoying it. I did start doing what I loved, but then I hit a lot of self-judgment.
Mm.
Who am I to be having such a good time? I feel guilty when everybody else is doing what they hate.
Yeah.
So it's been a real act of personal leadership for me to
Yeah.
say, I really want to take a place in the world where I'm embodying and encouraging a new way of being.
Yeah. Wow.
I've had to clear and still continue to clear so much within myself that I can take that place of leadership where I'm encouraging other people to discover what they were born to do and step into their leadership with it.
Yes.
Because I've realized now, it's 20 years since I wrote the book, The Work We're Born to Do, pretty much 20 years, and I coach a lot of people that read the book and are doing what they love, but they only allow themselves to go so far. They do it as a hobby or they do it as a career, but they think, I shouldn't allow myself to really succeed with it. And I think it's hugely courageous to let yourself really succeed.
Yeah, it is.
Doing what you love and being that example, so whether it's Desmond Tutu or whether it's Liz Trubridge or whether it's me or Robert or you or any of us, our true success is a blessing to everybody.
Yes.
Because I know that I've inspired thousands of people by writing, by speaking, and by broadcasting.
Yeah.
Just as we're having this conversation, it's going to touch lives. That's to me an act of leadership. You've touched hundreds, thousands of lives. So to me, it's not a selfish thing to do. There is it is possible to be selfish. But to me, if you like, the spirituality of succeeding is a blessing to everybody.
Yeah.
The more you allow yourself to succeed, the more it will help other people succeed. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's so important. In Denmark, we have this, it's sort of an unsaid law. We call it janteloven. It's a law that says, don't think you are anyone special.
No.
And don't let your light shine on anyone or anything.
My parents were Danish and I didn't realize it. That was their kind of metaphor. It's like, well, you're nobody special.
Yeah. And it got this thing completely wrong. Like, if I play small, if I don't shine, I will be a better person.
I'm somehow helping humanity. So there's a good intention there.
The intention is good, but it's wrong.
I tend to use the word more misunderstanding.
Yeah.
Rather than it being wrong and there being a judgment in it, it's like, well, egos do that.
Well, if you want to enhance love and light in others, I think the way to go about it is to try to land in your own light and love.
Yeah, your best way of kind of challenging that belief is to be light, is to be successful, is to be happy.
Yeah.
Show that there's something beyond what most people believe.
Yeah.
And there's kind of ego special and there's spiritual special. I think, my belief is that as a spiritual being, we're all precious. And I like the word precious. I think we're all precious, but there again, none of us are unique. If we're all children of God, then none of us are special. And the way and I kind of got this, I heard Robert talk about this once and I really liked it. He said, when we forget who we really are, then our ego tries to invent something special.
Yeah.
So much of the specialness in the world is invented, if you like.
Yeah.
As opposed to being natural.
Yeah.
And to me, there's a natural specialness. It's like, the way that you love your clients and the world is unique. That's precious. That's special. But then so much is like, how can we be special? How can we stand out? How can we be different from everybody else?
Yeah.
To me, that's a manufactured uniqueness that, if you manufacture it once, then the hard work is keeping it going. Whereas if you be yourself, you don't have to, you're not inventing anything.
No.
But your awareness of who you are today might be different from your awareness of who you were 10 years ago. And in 10 years' time, it's continually evolving, but it's headed towards the truth, if you like.
Yeah. Our true self.
Whereas a brand is the brand du jour, generally. It's like, well, this is how I am today, but I may need to totally reinvent myself in a couple of years' time to save myself becoming obscure.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just want to go one step back to, you said you had to do lots of clearance work within.
And
Yeah, and I think we have to do that our whole lives, right? We'll never really stop. But and you talked about forgiveness as a way of becoming a great leader of your own life and doing what we are here to do. Could you say a little more about that?
I suppose in essence, I think of forgiveness as letting go of all the things that I thought I was, of being horrible, of being evil, of being unloving, of being unkind, of being selfish. Maybe I have traits of all of those things, but I forgive myself for having them.
Yeah.
And in the forgiveness, I allow myself to become more of who I truly am.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So I suppose, another analogy might be, like the ballast of a balloon, like a balloon has ballast. You let go of the ballast and the balloon rises. It's just a law. I think that's what happens for each of us. The more we clear our own conditioning and our own programming, or the more we make peace with it, at least.
Yeah.
The more we just naturally rise.
Yeah, I think so too. And sometimes it takes staying with emotions for a while until it is all right. Yeah.
I can still very easily feel guilty. I can still very easily feel selfish. I can still very easily feel all the things that egos feel. So those things have not gone away.
So what do you do when you feel guilty, for example? How would you move that?
Sometimes I just feel guilty, or hold myself back. But go, I suppose one of the questions I ask myself is like, is this the truth? And if I didn't have A Course in Miracles in my life, the answer would probably be yes.
Yeah, it definitely is the truth.
Yes, I'm right. I'm a horrible person. But it's only, it's since I've become a student of A Course in Miracles that it's opened up enough kind of awareness in me to go, this is my ego speaking. It's not God speaking.
Yeah. It's not who I am.
And sometimes I get caught up in it, and sometimes, like most of us, I go insane for a little while. I just get caught up in my own patterns. I think that's part of leadership. It's not that we don't get caught up in our ego patterns. It's like we notice we've done it, and then we come back to sanity.
Yeah, I think so too.
As I talk to Liz a lot, my friend who you met, who's the producer of Downton, she says, "Look, I go crazy like everybody does, but I get sane quicker."
Yeah, we get sane quicker and quicker all the time.
Whereas a lot of the world is insane and stays insane.
Yes. Yeah.
I remember I did a day last year, I think it was, with Robert and Russ Hudson. Have you done with Russ as well? I remember one of the things that he said, we're all trying to be healthy in a system that is fundamentally unhealthy.
Yes.
It's hard.
Yeah.
What role models of true emotional health, of spiritual health do we have? Most of us don't have great role models. So in a way, we're trying to be the leaders we never had in our own lives.
Yeah.
We're being the parents to ourselves that we never experienced when we were growing up.
Yes.
Trying to be kinder than we ever experienced ourselves having been.
Yes.
Done to, if you like.
Yeah. And if we don't have the consciousness and maybe even the experiencing of something deeper or higher aspect of ourselves, I think we'll often just be the parents within our parents were, and sometimes even worse, with even more judgments and more telling ourselves off for all kinds of things.
I think two things can happen. Either we play out all those things that we inherited, so we become judgmental and shaming and all those things that we know, or we say, I would never be like that. I'd rather die than be like that. So we repress them, but it doesn't mean they go away. We just repress them and act the opposite. Or we can bring them to the light and dissolve them. That's my chosen path. It's like, just bring all this stuff up and do my best to dissolve it.
Yeah, me too. I love the truthfulness of that path.
Because as we've touched on, I think then we just have more compassion.
Yes. I usually use like the metaphor of a castle of who we are. So we come into life like these beautiful lit up castles, and every rooms we think are beautiful, and everyone can come inside and have a look. And There's nothing there that we want to hide, and
No,
it's
nothing to
all
be ashamed of.
fine. Yeah. And then, we watch our parents and we see some of the rooms in their castles have been shut down,
Mm.
and that they will love us more if we close some of our
Yeah.
doors as well, and we start doing that.
Yeah.
And that's, I think,
Beautiful metaphor. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we think for the rest of our lives, we think that the love is actually conditional, that
Mm.
I need to be and show myself in the world in a specific way to have
Beautiful. Yeah. Lovely way of putting it.
any luck with love in my life.
Yeah. I love the idea, well, I don't love it because it's painful, but I like the idea that, so much of what we think is love is actually sacrifice.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what, again, the Course of Miracles is very clear about, is that we've confused love and sacrifice.
Yes.
Ego says what we think is love is actually sacrifice.
Yeah.
It encourages us to be in major sacrifice and then says, but that's being loving.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
It's a recipe for disaster, quite often.
And also we think that love is something going on between two people, and that you need to show me how lovable I am so that I can feel loved.
That's often the kind of, I think I joked with my own partner the other day. I said, it's almost like we have this hidden contract, it's like, make me feel better about myself than I feel about myself. And when you fail, I'm going to be cross with you.
Yeah, exactly.
Really, our job, and that's the hard bit, is to, our own journey of realizing our own lovability.
Yes. Apart from the recognition you might get from someone else.
Yeah, because everyone else is doing the best they know how to make us feel lovable.
Yes.
But if we're carrying a lot of stuff about, well, I'm basically unlovable, however hard they try, they're not going to succeed.
No.
It is our responsibility in a way to take charge of our own sense of lovability.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is.
And own our own sense of unlovability.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really an unfair game that we pull other people into, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, show me I'm lovable, and if you show me, I'll reject it and not believe you, and I'll ask you to show me again and again and again.
Like a dance we play, and a lot of people just in the end they give up and go,
it's too hard.
I've given you my best shot, and you still don't think you're lovable. I'll go somewhere else where I feel really appreciated.
Yeah.
No wonder so many relationships kind of end in disaster of some kind, whether that's deadness or fights or in the lawyer's office, that's what we're acting out all the time.
Yeah.
I can recognize it in myself. You obviously recognize it in yourself.
Yeah.
Tell me more. Tell me to think better about myself than I think of myself.
Yes. Yeah.
But then when you try, you're in trouble because I won't believe it.
Yeah. Yeah, or I won't respect you anymore.
Yeah.
Because if you think that well of me, there must be something wrong with you.
Yeah, like the Karl Marx, the Groucho Marx thing about you don't want to be part of any club that would have you as a member. If you think I'm unlovable, that just shows how stupid you are, because I know how crap I am, really.
Yeah. And,
I think at the end of the day, like just as we're doing now, I think one of the only ways of handling this stuff is humor.
Yeah.
We either laugh or cry, and I've done plenty of crying, and I just want to laugh more,
Yeah, I think humor is so important to be able to see ourselves with this.
Yeah, and not
it's actually humor. Sometimes funny and crazy what we do.
This, being in a body and having this earthly existence, when you look at it from even a little bit of distance, is pretty funny, really. The shenanigans we get up to, and sometimes it's painful and sometimes it's tragic, but I've been like you have. I've been at this path now for over 3 decades, and I'm thinking one of the best ways of handling it isn't necessarily even more therapy; it's more humor.
Yes.
I want to laugh at my own craziness more.
Yes, we get so easily caught up in feeling sorry for ourselves and our patterns, and sometimes it's just so good to be able to laugh.
Yeah. So interestingly, I'm speaking to a lot of coaching clients who are thinking, I want to explore my humor and my comedy more. And I'm going, I think that comes a point in many of our lives where our strategy is just to be able to laugh at it all a bit more.
Yeah.
Not to take it all so seriously.
I think it's a very important part of spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, God has, my belief is probably God's got total compassion for us and probably laughs and goes, do they really believe this?
Yes. Yeah.
I created you as this amazing, powerful, creative being, and you believe this about yourself now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. So, so going back to I'm lost. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to find my true calling.
Right. Shall I give you what I use as a kind of signpost for people?
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
You know, I came up with 9 originally, but the major 3 really are, number 1, I get people to follow a sense of inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
What does that mean exactly?
well, it's a great question because I think we all experience inspiration a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the fact that we experience it differently doesn't mean it doesn't have a universality to it.
Yeah.
And to me, you know, what I mean by it, you know, my experience of it is, you know, I'm a writer. I've written 14 books so far. I go out every morning to write.
Mm-hmm.
And not every morning when I'm walking to the cafe do I feel inspired to write.
Mm.
But yet what I know is probably within 5 or 10 minutes of sitting down to write, the inspiration starts to flow. I
Yes.
kind of go, oh yeah, that's what I want to write about. That feels right to write about today. Oh yeah, I would really want to explore that area in greater depth.
Mm.
And then I lose myself for an hour or two in writing.
Mm. So what do you do to get to this?
It's almost like turning on a tap.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the problem, sorry to interrupt you, but the problem that many of us have is we're waiting for the tap to be turned on,
Yeah.
without realizing that if we need to turn on the tap. And for me, turning on the tap is starting to speak,
Yeah.
starting to write.
Yeah.
You know, we're caught in our resistance. And because we're caught in our resistance, we never get to turn on the tap, or whatever metaphor you want to use.
Yeah.
But for me, it's the discipline of
Yeah.
going out to write every morning and knowing that even on my worst mornings, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
Yet within 10 or 15 minutes, I'm loving it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Also the discipline part, because I think that's actually quite important.
Yeah, and you know, you may have heard this expression, but I put it in a book I wrote about 8 years ago, a book called The Business You Were Born to Create. And I think it was Luciano Pavarotti, the opera singer.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently he was asked a question and somebody said to him, how are you so disciplined? You know, you rehearse or practice 5 or 6 hours a day. How can you be so disciplined to do that?
Yeah.
And he said, it's not discipline, it's devotion.
Yeah.
And I think at the beginning of our journey, it needs to be perhaps a discipline. We make ourselves do things.
Yeah, like meditation, right? You need to be disciplined with that in the beginning.
Yeah. So to start off with, it took discipline to get me to go to write every morning.
Yeah.
But now I almost can't imagine not writing every morning. I feel robbed when I don't get to do it. There are occasional meetings I need to go to first thing in the morning, and I go them, and then I come back, and then I go and write in the afternoon instead. If I don't write at some point in the day, I feel like I've been robbed. It's a devotion. I haven't done one of the things that I most love doing.
Yeah.
So I think we need this combination of discipline and devotion.
Yeah, I think so too.
But if it's only ever discipline, it's only ever ego.
Yes.
But I think by utilizing the positive side of discipline, we open the doors to devotion.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
And it's my experience.
Yeah, I think you're so right. I talked to Robert Holden the other day, and he mentioned the concept of the divine yes, knowing your divine yes.
Yeah, so that's probably the same thing that I'm calling devotion. It's like, it's calling to you.
Yes.
Say, sit down and write.
Yes.
You know, and I think, you know, I'm sure you experience it often as a workshop leader. You know, often you're not inspired to lead, but you start leading and you go, oh, I love this. And the ideas start to flow and the next steps start to emerge. So you have to move through that fear and resistance. Move into, you know, I suppose we're also talking here about flow. Inspiration is the doorway of flow.
Yeah, you're so right.
Divine, yes, devotion, whatever language.
Yes.
But people often get, and I have done, you know, and we all do, we get so caught in our own fear and resistance, we don't cross the threshold. We never enter the flow.
So what do you think the fear and the things that are holding us back, how do we overcome them to even start having devotion or discipline enough in our lives to do
It's a great question. And I suppose for me, the word inspiration and engagement go together. We've got to engage with the thing that want to do. Whether that's a relationship, whether it's sitting down and having a conversation with their partner that could lead to a healing, whether it's me sitting down at the computer every morning to write, whether it's you standing up to give your workshops, you need to engage with it. And I think what we're often doing is, well, let me figure it all out, let me solve it all, and then I'll do it.
Yeah.
We don't realize that by engaging with it and by going through that fear and resistance, then that flow is there waiting for us.
Yeah. Yeah. I sometimes say to people that there is a message to ourselves if we don't do it. And it's so important to hear that message clearly and honestly. It's like, you're not worth it, you're not important enough, I don't trust you, things like that.
It's taken me a long time. If I just take my writing discipline as an example, for the first few years of being a writer, it was like, well, I'll write when I've got time.
Yeah.
And then it went into a phase of, well, I suppose if I want to call myself a writer, I need to diarize writing time.
Yeah.
And a kind of writing practice.
Yeah.
To the stage I've got to now, which is I can't imagine not writing.
No.
I need to write to stay sane.
Yeah.
Whether that's just thinking things through for myself, or whether it's writing to produce something that's going to go on my blog, or it's going to be a book, or is a proposal for a client, or it's going to be a speech. I've got to do it. I go insane if I don't do it.
Yeah.
And I think again, it's like that, we've touched on it, whether we call it the Protestant work ethic or whatever you might call it in Denmark, it's like we have been taught to rob ourselves of flow.
Yes.
And do the thing that we would rather not do instead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Flow is cheating.
Yeah. Yeah, you're so right. And it's a very beautiful way of honoring ourselves, right?
Yeah. And, just a couple of quick things, I've never been able to pronounce his name, but the Hungarian writer who wrote a book a few years ago called Flow.
Yeah.
I read one of his later books and he talked about research and he said, well, they got a load of people that love doing stuff and they put them in a research program and they said, right, every time you feel like doing what would give you flow, don't do it. And journal it. They had to give up the experiment after 3 days because the people who loved doing what they did, if they didn't get to do it, they became ill, either depressed or frustrated or angry or physically ill. And I can relate to that. I'm sure you can. If you don't do the things you love over a prolonged period of time, and it might only be a couple of days, if we're out of our flow for any long period of time, we are going to pay a price for it.
Yeah.
Either in mental or emotional lack of wellness, I think.
Yes, I think so too.
So there's that side of it, which says if we're out of flow, we're going to suffer for it. There is no getting away from it.
No, so it's actually really serious business.
Sorry?
It's actually really serious business. We become ill. Yeah.
I do truly believe that if we all learn to be in our flow more and overcome our resistance, then alcohol sales would go down, drug addiction would go down, a lot of doctor surgeries would be half empty, because I think that what so many of us are suffering from is the lack of our spiritual and creative expression in the world.
Yeah.
So there's that side of it. And then, who's been one of my favorite teachers over the years, I'm sure you've heard her, is Julia Cameron, The Artist's Way.
Yes.
Being and realizing that the way she thinks of it is kind of creative recovery. We think of recovery from a substance, I'm giving up alcohol, or I'm recovering from being a drug addict. I'm recovering from not expressing my creativity when I was younger.
Yeah.
And her program is all about how do you recover your creative spirit.
Yeah.
And I see myself as still recovering my creative spirit. Not that I'm not there yet, but it's like that process will continue for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
There's more to unwrap for the rest of my life.
Yes.
And my belief is there is just so much to unwrap in every human being.
Yeah, I believe
but
that.
It's not as easy as we always think it's going to be.
No, but the other road is not easy either.
No.
Suffering and being unhappy.
There's either, I suppose the distinction I would make is the resignation to a life of suffering.
Yes.
Or a commitment to a life of creativity or spirituality, knowing that you will suffer along the way. It's not a life of suffering you're signing up for.
Yeah, I like that.
there'll be some conscious suffering along the way.
Yeah.
But you're not signing. I don't look at my books and go, God, you were a great way to suffer.
No.
I
Yeah.
know that I suffered sometimes while I was writing them. But being able to share them with the world is the greatest joy for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it is that thing of flow of, do we want to give ourselves that joy?
Yes.
Do we want to give ourselves that inspiration? So I'm sorry, I'm kind of leaping in here, but the 3 signposts. Number 1 is inspiration and flow. Number 2 is we find what we were born to do in our greatest resistance. Often the very thing we tell ourselves we could never do holds a clue. What are we spending most energy not doing?
Yeah.
I spent the first half of my life, I think, probably with the dream of being a writer and probably with the dream of doing what I'm doing today. But I put so much energy into telling myself I could never do those things, into resisting those things.
Yeah.
So the way I've come to think of it is, on one level, perhaps, all our resistance and our fear is blocked creative energy, waiting to be unblocked.
Yeah.
The very things I was terrified to do, write, speak, coach, broadcast, have actually held the greatest gifts.
Yeah.
So what if our ego's fear and resistance is really just a dust storm to say, there's really something wonderful here?
Yes.
Otherwise, we wouldn't be creating all this drama to pretend there was nothing wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So
use your fear and resistance as a pointer.
Yeah.
One of the expressions today goes, lean into your fear, lean into your resistance.
Yes.
The very fact that you're resisting means there is something to resist.
Yeah.
You can uncover what the gem is and what the gold is. Everything I do today, I was once terrified to do. And I still get scared, but not half as much as I used to. I'm sure you can relate to that. But my resistance tells me there's something there.
Yes. Yeah. So you would ask people to look into what is your resistance exactly?
Yeah. What are the things that you're most resisting doing? What are the things you dream of doing that you always put at the bottom of your to-do list?
Yeah.
It could be a clue there.
Yeah, I like that. I'll look at that when we finish off for myself.
Thank you. Yeah, and that is a massive area. We could talk for an hour just on this idea of resistance, because I wrote a book on it, and I'm just fascinated because, again, I think most of the world is in resistance.
Yeah, I think so too.
But we don't even know we're in resistance.
No, and we have all these excuses, right, for why it's on the bottom of our lists. Like, I don't have time for that. My life is too hard for that. My kids are too small. I don't have enough money.
Or I'd have to start again. For many people, it's like, I've invested so much here, and now I'm saying I want to start again in something new. But often, we're a lot further down the route than we think we are. So
yeah.
And the third way that people find, what they were born to do, the work they were born to do, is a specific kind of resistance. But I call it, we live a shadow life. And by a shadow life, what I mean is that we live a life that's kind of parallel to the one that we really want to be living. And I'm guessing from what you've described to me of the Danish kind of upbringing and culture, a lot of people might relate to this. So it's like we give ourselves half permission.
Yeah.
So I use my own example. I'll give you a general example. You might have a calling to write a book. So therefore you end up working in a bookshop. You're surrounded by books. You get to meet some authors. You get to buy your books at a discount, and you get to meet people who also love books and writing.
Yeah.
You never actually get to write your own book. So on one level, you can kind of convince yourself you're living your calling. My calling is to write a book, and look what I've done. I've immersed myself in the world of books. But the one thing I haven't done is to write my own book.
Yeah.
Do you get the idea?
I do. Yeah.
And I'm sure many people can relate to this. So in a funny kind of way, it's the way that we hide out.
Yeah.
We're close to what we love, but we hide out and don't quite get there.
Yeah.
So my example, have you ever been to Alternatives at St. James's Church?
No.
Okay. So Alternatives, Robert knows it very well. He's spoken there many times. It's a personal and spiritual development lecture series that happens in central London. And I was involved for 21 years. 3 years I co-led it until I read Julia Cameron, and I understood this idea of a shadow life, because what she basically said is all the things that I just said to you.
Yeah.
And as I read it, lying on a sun lounger in Lanzarote, I had what I affectionately call an oh shit moment, where I went, oh shit, I'm living a shadow life.
Yeah.
I gravitated to the area that I want to be involved in. And here I am introducing Wayne Dyer, Deepak Chopra, Susan Jeffers, Marianne Williamson, Robert Holden to a worldwide audience, to a London audience. But I actually want to be the one giving the talks, not the one promoting the talks.
Yeah.
I want to be the one who becomes an author,
Yeah.
not who promotes other authors. And it was like this aha, oh shit moment all in one go. It was like, now I see I'm living a shadow life. Oh, does that mean I have to stop what I'm doing? But I don't think we necessarily stop what we're doing. We just realize there's another chapter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's about showing up.
Yeah.
So within a year of realizing that, I'd relinquished a lot of my day-to-day responsibilities, and I started writing my first book. This was 20 years ago, and I became an author and a speaker and a coach full time. I realized I was, in the best possible way, I was fooling myself.
Yeah.
I was convincing myself I was living my calling, but actually I was living a shadow calling.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of people can recognize that when they're going to listen to this, which is, I've gravitated to the area. I'm supporting another leader. I'm supporting an artist. I'm supporting an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
But if we're really honest, we want to be the leader. We want to be the entrepreneur.
Yeah.
We want to be the broadcaster. We want to be the leader.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's having the self-esteem, the self-worth, the self-belief to say, I could be that too. Or I am that already too. Let me become it.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's stepping into our light.
Yeah, it's, I suppose in many respects, the worst manifestation of resistance is the inner critic.
Yeah.
And I believe that probably what stops most of us blossoming into our calling is our inner critic that says, "Who do you think you are?"
Yeah.
There's enough personal development teachers out there already. Who needs you as another one?
Yes.
So our calling and our calling often really stimulates our inner critic.
Yeah. And so important to be able to hear that voice clearly, right? The inner critic, because otherwise we can't work with it. And I think so often it's just like this subtle voice that we
insidious.
and we don't really hear it. We just act accordingly.
Or, without that awareness, we think our inner critic is the truth.
Yes.
We just go, you're right, actually, I shouldn't do this. Who needs another right speaker, workshop leader,
Yes.
The world doesn't need it, you're right.
Yeah.
And yet, so that's one of the conversations I love having as a coach is, in a way, I don't think the world is overflowing with people that are living their calling.
No.
I think we need more of us to get past our fear and get past our resistance to show up with what we were born to do. And that's a big part of my work today, is to help incubate that. And having been through that journey myself, as you have been, is to recognize where people are caught.
Yeah.
And to hold a mirror up and go, that story you're telling yourself is not the truth. The story you're telling yourself.
Yeah. And it's just a story. It's just thoughts.
And I suppose I now have the confidence and self-belief, having seen the impact that I've had by getting beyond those voices, to go, probably all of us have our own version of that. You're not being selfish by wanting to write a book. How many people in a way are waiting for you to write your book?
Yes.
How many people's lives could be enhanced by you writing your authentic book? If you didn't show up and run your workshops, how many lives would be diminished because you didn't show up and you gave into your own inner critic?
Yeah.
So, in a way, I see myself as a kind of, like a birther. I help people give birth to themselves, just as I've spent so much time and energy giving birth to myself.
Wow, I love that.
So it's like that generosity. It's like if there's a network of us, a lot of people would call us light workers, and I don't know how much I relate to that idea, but those of us that who have led the way in giving birth to ourselves, our job if we want it, is to now help other people give birth to themselves.
Yeah.
That's the leadership position for me.
Yeah, you're right. And today, if your inner critic comes up, what do you do with it?
As I say, some days it does take me out. If I'm honest, over the last few years, thinking about stepping into a new level of my own leadership has not been easy. I have experienced so much resistance within myself.
Yeah.
And yet I kind of go, well, do I give into the resistance, or do I birth myself? And, you know, I've got enough people around me who don't let me get away with it for too long. And I've got better at collaborating with other people who kind of go, well, you know, we'll help you.
Yeah.
Energetically, or just sitting down and encouraging you, or on a bad day, if I feel like I want to give up, they just go, you know, this is just part of your birth.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've got better, you know, and I've had some good teachers, you know, and people who are not necessarily teachers in my life now, but when I hear their voices in my head, I can make sense of what's going on for me.
Yes.
I'm in a birthing process. Yeah. That's why I'm in so much pain, or that's why I'm struggling so much. That's why I've got so much resistance. I'm in a birth. I'm not in a death.
Yeah. Although it might feel like a death.
Yeah, it feels like a bit of a death.
In one level, it is actually kind of.
Yeah, it's an ego death, but it's a soul birth. You know?
Yes. And I think it's important to know that every time we do take a step, all the layers that need to be dissolved to be able to take that step will come up, right?
And my experience is, I usually think to myself, I bet there's a bit of resistance to deal with here. And then I look at it and I go, oh shit, there's a lot more resistance than I realized it was.
I don't want to do this anyway. Yeah.
But as you know, you can't go backwards. You can't become unconscious. Once you become conscious, you just kind of got to keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
So those are the three ways. So inspiration, resistance, and shadow life. You know, they're usually, they cover a lot of the ways that, in my experience, people hold themselves back.
Yes.
You know,
I think it will make great sense to anyone listening, really. I think if we become honest with ourselves, we all have aspects of those three dimensions, right?
Yeah, and I think, you know, I use the word inspiration. Maybe the truth is it's the Holy Spirit talking. I don't know. You know, it could be this idea of universal inspiration. I'm getting happier going, you know what, I don't really know. I just have a sense of things.
Yeah.
But in my sense, you know, there's that inspiration, the Holy Spirit, love, whatever word you want to use, is puts us on an evolutionary path.
Yeah. Yes.
You know, what inspired me 20 years ago isn't necessarily inspiring me today.
No.
You know, it's always saying there's more of you. So let something die and let something else be born in you. It's constant renewal process for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it is for all of us. And I think until we understand that, we kind of go, well, what's wrong with me? You know, I'm doing what I was inspired by 10 years ago. How come I'm no longer inspired by it? And when I'm coaching entrepreneurs or leaders, it kind of, then it makes sense to them. It's like, it's time for a new chapter. It's time for a new birth.
Yeah.
And there will be some resistance within you to that, in my experience.
Yeah.
But because I've been and still go through that process so often myself, and I'm on the Enneagram, I'm a 4, so I'm about constant renewal.
Yes.
So even though I don't always enjoy it, it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm therefore able to help people go through their renewals and their deaths and rebirths.
Yeah, you really understand that.
I understand the idea of it. I don't always find it easy to be with them when they're going through it. I don't find it easy still with myself sometimes. Why do I have to be a 4? Why can't it be easy?
Yeah.
Because you're an 8, aren't you? You're the challenge.
I'm an 8, yes. Yeah. My greatest teacher is my daughter, who's a 4.
Yeah, all right. Yeah.
I love it.
Some of the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, yes, the big message that I want everyone to take out of this is that there's always more of us to be born.
Yes, there is always more of us to be born. I love that. That might be our end note for today.
Yeah. So, and that's what I'm passionate about. There's always more in me to be born, always more in you to be born, always born in everybody.
Yes. Yeah.
More to be born. and maybe it pre-exists. That's for me the Course in Miracles perspective. It's not like I have to create a new chapter. It's like, let me hear what this new chapter already is.
Yes, it's already there.
Yeah, and let me help it happen in the world.
Yeah. Wow. So thank you so much for showing up as you and showing up in the world, doing what you do.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I love it. Conversations like this are what my life. I thrive on conversations like this. So
yeah, me too. It's greatly appreciated.
My pleasure. And hopefully people watching and listening will benefit from it. If anyone wants to get in touch, I've got a website, social media presence.
Could you please mention your website?
So it's Nick Williams, but I am, so I, the letter I, and then AM, I am nickwilliams.com.
Yes.
By all means, get in touch with me direct. There's stuff I put out every day for free, and regularly for free. So I'm always very happy to hear from people.
Yes.
Then I'm on LinkedIn, social media,
Instagram. You have great quotes on Instagram.
Yeah, thank you.
You do.
And I suppose I see that as part of my calling. Every day I publish something.
Yeah.
I don't know who's going to read this today,
no.
but I want to put this out in the world. There's so much negativity that I want to put something positive and real out into the world.
Yeah, and you do, Nick.
Thank you.
You do put out something positive.
Yeah. And for me, it's also that good practice that we talked about. There are plenty of days where I don't feel like doing it myself.
Yeah.
And says, who the heck wants to hear from you today? You said something yesterday. Why do you need to say something today? And I think, I just want to beat resistance every day.
Yeah.
I want to build up that resistance busting muscle, if you like.
Yeah.
So thank you.
I hope you feel inspired to do what you came here to do. And thank you so much for listening. You are welcome to follow me on Facebook or on Instagram. It's KISSERPALUDAN. Thank you.